אודה לכם אם תשבו, גבירותיי ורבותיי. Paul Misener. Paul explains and advocates Amazon's culture and methods of sustained customer-obsessed innovation, particularly in the context of Amazon's leadership principle. Paul founded Amazon's public policy operations and served as the company's vice president for global public policy from February 2000 to May 2016. He has testified before the United States Congress over 30 times on behalf of Amazon and its customers. Paul is both an engineer and attorney. He had intended to become an astrophysicist and is an inventor named in 3 patents. He and his family live outside Washington, D.C. Paul Misener, we are honored to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Good morning. Lots of very important conversations happening here, and I hope to add to it in some very small way. It's a real honor to be here. Professor Reichman invited me a few months ago. It's a particular honor, though, given that this is, of course, the 25th anniversary of the IDC, and congratulations to you. What a great institution you've formed here. A fabulous institution, 25 years old. There's another institution that is also 25 years old this year. It's Amazon. We were founded, no, thank you. Yeah, right. It's not the same, but it is Amazon. And we were formed 25 years ago this month. In fact, 25 years ago this week we were formed. Now, the founding of Amazon was sort of an improbable event. We wanted to sell, initially anyway, books online. And this was really before e-commerce had become a thing. We're going to sell books online. Very improbable that we would try to do this. Now, a lot of people were predicting the demise, the failure of Amazon. Still others were hoping for the demise and failure of Amazon, and still others were trying to cause the failure of Amazon. In fact, at least one competitor vowed to crush Amazon. How nice. And yet here we are, 25 years later. How'd that happen? How is it possible that this little startup 25 years ago still is around? Well, I think it's in part because we remain true to our roots in books. We started out as this online bookstore, and I think we still have a pretty good online bookstore. We also quickly allowed other booksellers, other third parties, to come onto our website and sell their books alongside ours. So we wanted to promote the sale of books, and then a few years later, we introduced a product called the Kindle, which more or less revolutionized e-books, electronic books, e-readers. And then, as recently as 2015, we've opened up a series of offline bookstores, a real commitment to book sales, book availability. And it just isn't how we do business. It's just not the business that we send out, but it's also the way the company functions internally. We're very much a company of the spoken and the written word. The written word is extremely important to decision-making at Amazon. It turns out that decisions made inside the company at mid-levels, senior levels, all the way to the very top are based entirely on written prose narratives. It turns out that bullet point presentations in the context of decision making are actually banned at Amazon. We just don't allow them. The reason is because the bullet points tend to be vague and malleable. You're in a meeting and maybe that few words next to a bullet point can be changed based on how the meeting goes. No, we don't allow that. What happens is if there's a proponent of a new product or service within Amazon, and she's got this great idea, we ask her to write a narrative, a prose narrative. It can be no longer than 6 pages long, so within Amazon it's called the 6-page narrative. And in it she writes out, in prose, words, sentences, paragraphs, sections, a document that describes the new product or service that she is advocating. Then we call together a meeting, an hour-long meeting, and the decision makers come into the room along with the proponent, and she has her 6-page narrative. She distributes it in the meeting, and for the first half hour or so, everyone sits there and reads. There's no conversation at all for the first 30, 35 minutes inside of a meeting. Well, what does this do for you? Well, first of all, by writing out a narrative, she has had to think through all the issues, all the questions that may arise from the people making a decision. And then she will have put them in a document in such a way that they're organized, and so you can get the flow of her idea. You also have everyone reading the document. How many times, in a university setting, this happens all the time. How many times have you gone to a class and you've done the reading and maybe not everybody has done the reading, or maybe you didn't do the reading, or maybe you read it in the back of a taxi on the way to class. Maybe you read it 3 weeks ago. At Amazon, all those written words come into our minds right during the meeting that we're making the decision. So everyone has read the document. Everybody is on the same page, as it were, in time to make that decision. And so then the conversation, then the decision-making is very focused. Okay, well, this is just one example of how Amazon really is a company of the book. We believe very much in that written word. But in addition to that, we have stuck with, for the past 25 years, a set of core values that are very much Amazon's. We don't claim that they're the best core values for every enterprise to have. We don't claim that they're even the right set. Many different enterprises have different sets of values. We have our own, though. These are Amazon's, and we've stuck with them for these 25 years. And I think that's the biggest explanation of how Amazon has survived this quarter century. In the context of innovation, several of these stand out, and so I'll walk you through these. But I think it's important to recognize that if you have a set of principles, they need to be abided by. They need to be adhered to. They're not optional things, or there's no sense in having principles. And so we have, and you can find them posted on any of our websites, we have called 14 leadership principles. And to be clear, these leadership principles apply to all 600,000 of us throughout the world, not just to the senior leadership of the company. And these leadership principles really govern how we operate. They govern how we hire people. If you want to be hired by Amazon, one must demonstrate one's performance against those leadership principles. It's how we evaluate our performance, at least annually, usually more often than that. We talk to each other about how well we performed against these leadership principles. And most importantly, they're how we behave, how we make decisions within Amazon are based on these leadership principles. And again, I'm not claiming religion here. These aren't necessarily certainly they're not the only leadership principles that could exist. We're not even claiming that they're best. They just happen to be Amazon's. Now, of these 14, one is foremost, and I hope if you're an Amazon customer, you've experienced this. This one that is foremost is customer obsession. It really is part of everything we do. It sounds a little bit like a marketing slogan, like, of course you want to obsess over your customers, but no, it's a very real thing. And there are commercial enterprises who are very successful and do a pretty good job serving customers, but aren't obsessed about customers in the same way we are, and it just happens to be, again, the way Amazon does business. Now, in the context of innovation, the most clear manifestation of customer obsession is what we call the working backwards process. This is how it works. If today we have an idea for a new product or service that we want to deliver to our customers sometime in the future, today we'll sit down and write out, again, written word, a press release announcing the new product or service. Now, this press release isn't going to go out for maybe months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years from now, but we write it today. What does it do for you? Well, first of all, you've written it down. It's a commitment. Now, how many times have we all been in sort of a meeting and we make a decision about what we're going to do, and we all shake hands, and it's a good decision? No, we write it out. This is a commitment to what we're going to do. It's not a vague idea of something we want to do. No, it's a commitment. Second,
because it is a press release, it's written in customer terms. What's in it for her when she gets this new product or service months or years from now? It describes what, not how. The how is up to us to figure out. It's the what's in it for her. Now, having established that we are committed to it, we've written this narrative, this press release, we're going to launch this product or service sometime in the future. From that point, we work backwards to today to figure out all the things we need to do to deliver that what to the customer. The most sublime part of this process, however, is the fact that you're writing out a press release this designed for a release months or years from now means that what you're trying to accomplish is not possible today. You see, if it were possible today, you'd write the press release and send it out in the morning or send it out next week after the lawyers took a look at it. No, we're writing a release for months or years from now. We're admitting that what we want to do is not possible today, that we're going to have to invent something, we're going to have to innovate our way there. Now, one example of this that you may know about, it's called Amazon Go. This is a store that we have, I don't know, about 10 versions of this or 10 examples of this in the United States now, and undoubtedly it will be deployed elsewhere. It's a physical store that lacks tills, cash registers, lines. The whole idea was we wanted to create a store where our customers could walk in, find the products they wanted to buy, and just walk out. They don't have to wait in a queue, to wait in a line, to pay money. Think about this. This is a really bad customer experience. The customer experience is that you walk into a typical brick-and-mortar store, you find what you want to buy, you pick up a few things, or maybe you have a cart or a basket, and then you have to wait to give the store money. Waiting and losing money are bad customer experiences. And that's been with us for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. We've put up with this lousy customer experience, and now it's gone. I've been in one of these stores. There are several in Seattle, and it really works. I mean, the cool thing is it works. You walk in, and you just basically put your cell phone on a little device, put the cell phone away. You just find what you want to get. You just walk out with it. Now, how this works is really hard. It's complicated. It relies on sensor fusion. So there's sensors all over the place. There's machine learning. There's deep learning algorithms involved. A lot of computation, a lot of very sophisticated sensors to make it clear that when someone takes something and puts it in their pocket or their back pocket or takes it and puts it back on a different shelf, it keeps track of all these things. That's hard. That was our job. But when we sat down and we wrote that press release, what was the focus of the press release? It wasn't sensor fusion, machine learning, deep learning algorithms. It was just walk out. Because that's the what. That's what's in it for customers. They don't need to know how we did all those things. And in fact, it really wasn't important. It was not important how we did those things. It was just important that they can just walk out. So when we wrote this press release years ago, announcing this, the focus was on just walk out. And then from that envisioned point, we worked backwards to develop all these technologies. Now, I was involved in one of these press release writing exercises several years ago for a future service that we call Amazon Prime Air. This is deliveries by unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. So aerial drones delivering packages. Sounds cool, right? And it is. The technology is fabulous. Who knew that Amazon would be doing propeller design and be concerned about battery life and efficiency and airspace regulations, all the things that go into flying a fleet of drones? It's hard, but that wasn't the focus of the press release. When we wrote the press release, the focus was delivery to a customer within 30 minutes of an order. That's simple. That was the what. And so the what was, we wrote out this press release saying, now you can buy things from Amazon and have it delivered within 30 minutes of an order. We knew that this was going to take years to develop, so that we knew that that press release that I helped draft a couple of years ago was not going to go out for years. But we still wrote it out. Focus was, again, delivery within 30 minutes of an order. It was up to us then to work backwards from that point and figure out all the stuff we needed to do. We knew it was going to be hard. It's really hard, it turns out. But we're working on it, and soon we hope to be able to launch this to our customers. So that's customer obsession. And that whole working backwards process is one I challenge everybody in this room to try. I mean, seriously, every one of us could have at least one press release. And maybe it's never going to be a press release in the case that you actually send it out to the press. But maybe it's a written commitment to you or your friends or your family or to your institution, your school, whatever. Write it out, and it's a goal that you have set for yourself in writing, and then you work backwards from that some point in the future to today, figuring out all the stuff that you have to do, the how of it. But write out the what. How would you explain to your family, your neighbors, your school, what you've just accomplished for them? Every one of us could have one of these press releases. And by the way, I have, depending on how you count, 4 or 5 in my desk drawer in my office. And part of what I've done there is not only have I'm working on some of these projects, and I'm confident that not all 4 or 5 of these will ever go out as an actual press release, but part of what I envision is a customer knocking on my door. And you can imagine this, you're sitting at your office, you're typing away at your computer, knocking on the door. I say, come in. Customer walks in and she says, so, Mr. Misener, what are you working on today? I've got some emails, I got a meeting in 20 minutes, and I got a conference call later, and then I've got to do some more emails, I've got to answer a few text messages, and I've got another conference call late tonight. And she says, I'm your customer, what's in it for me? What are you doing? You're doing all these meetings, conference calls, what's in it for me, the customer? Well, if I just say, I don't know, I'm doing my work, I'm doing my job, that's not going to be very convincing. Instead, I have in my desk drawer these press releases, and then I can pull them out, and I can hand them to her, and I say, look, this is what I'm working on. If she reads these things and says, oh, that's what you're working on for me, your customer, that's a great outcome. But if I'm unable to describe to a customer who's walked into my office what I'm doing for her, then maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I should be doing something else. I need to be able to describe, and I would suggest that everyone in this room needs to be able to describe to whoever your customers are, describe to them what you're doing for them day by day, hour by hour. And if it's a meeting designed to get to that press release, to get to that thing in the future, she'll be happy with that. Okay, that's customer obsession at Amazon. Another one of the leadership principles of the other 13, there are 3 that really kind of stand out to me as being particularly important for innovation. One is called invent and simplify. All right, there's a description of it on the website, so you can check it out. But the whole idea is this, that everyone in the company is required to be inventive. It's not an optional thing at Amazon. It's not like we have a set of people over in some special secret laboratory doing all the inventing and then everybody else just does the work. Everybody at Amazon is required at some level to be inventive, to try new things. Now, there's an empowering aspect to this, and I'll tell you about that in a second, but it's also a requirement. We want people to be inventive. We have, obviously, large warehouses at places around the world, and these large warehouses include lots of employees who work in a warehouse. It might be easy to say, they don't need to be inventive, they just go do your jobs. No, they're required to be inventive as well. And we practice something that Toyota introduced, I guess it's back in the 1980s, called Kaizens. And these are teams that get together and try to make small improvements, just continuously making small improvements. And in a warehouse, especially for a company that operates at scale around the world, if you make a very small improvement that saves a few seconds, well, multiply that by billions of packages, and suddenly it's a really big deal. So again, everyone is required to invent at Amazon. It's not just reserved for a few other people. The leadership principle that is my favorite is a little bit difficult to say, so I'll try to say it slowly and several times. It's this: are right a lot. Are right, comma, a lot. Well, of course you want to be right. Nobody likes to be wrong. But it doesn't say are right. And it certainly doesn't say are right all the time. It says are right a lot, which means that you can be wrong. In fact, you can be wrong a lot in Amazon. Failure is accepted. And in fact, it's not only accepted, it's expected. We expect everybody at Amazon, when they're experimenting, to fail. Here's why. We want to try new things. We want to be innovative. We want to do new stuff. And to do something new that's never been done before, you must experiment. This sounds confusing to a lot of people because we all had some sort of a school class where maybe it was chemistry or biology or physics, some science, and we did experiments, right? And you mixed some chemicals in a test tube and another chemical, and you heated it up, and it turned blue. And if it turned blue, then you did well on the experiment. Well, that wasn't an experiment. Your teacher knew how it was supposed to turn out, and if you were a good student, you knew how it was supposed to turn out. It turned blue. That's not an experiment. It's probably a demonstration of something that actually was an experiment 200 years ago, but what you were doing was merely a demonstration. If you're doing something new, you cannot know how it's going to turn out. It must be able to fail, else it's not actually an experiment. It's actually nothing new. So, we want to innovate. We must experiment. We must be able to fail. Now, it isn't just a matter of saying, well, it's okay if you fail if you try. That's not it. The whole point is you try something that's in the context of experimentation. You actually have to try to make your own idea fail. We have a part of this leadership principle. Again, I encourage you to look at the website, but the leadership principle says something like, leaders work to disconfirm their beliefs. Now, every one of us has a confirmation bias. It's kind of baked into humanity, where we have an idea, a new project that we're working on, and we constantly look for data points that support our idea, confirm our idea. This is called confirmation bias. We actively work to push back against the confirmation bias by requiring everybody to try to disconfirm their beliefs. Now, as you may know, Albert Einstein, general theory of relativity, it's about, 102, 103 years old now. And over the past century, a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of very smart people have tested this theory. And you know what? Albert Einstein has never, ever yet once, not even once, been proven right. He can't be proven right. A scientific theory cannot be proven right. It's always provisional. Now, the very fact that a lot of time and money and very smart people have tried to prove him wrong and have failed to prove him wrong gives us a sense that there's some reality behind the general theory of relativity. There's a lot of confidence in there. Likewise, an innovative product or service that we're trying to develop, we can never prove that it will be a great product. We can never prove that customers will love it. We can, however, try to make it fail. And if we make it fail, well, then we've learned something, and that's okay within Amazon. We've tried, then we move on to something else. We have many examples of failure. But if we fail to make it fail, then we can have some confidence that it might actually be a pretty good idea, a pretty good product. Early on, when I joined Amazon late 99, early 2000, we had something called auctions, Amazon auctions. We had an auction site. Well, nobody used it. It failed for a lot of reasons, but undaunted, we tried again, and it was another iteration of allowing third parties to come and sell through our website. It's called Z-Shops. Again, not many people used it. It was cumbersome. It was difficult, all those things. Undaunted, we tried what we now call Amazon Marketplace, which allows third parties to come and sell right alongside of Amazon. And it works. But it took those two failures to get to the point of the thing working, and it turns out now that well over half the things sold through Amazon websites are not sold by Amazon, they're sold by somebody else. It took a while to get to that point. Now, there's a reason I carry around a phone that is not an Amazon phone. We had a phone for about 8 months. It didn't work out. We thought it was pretty cool, and we thought it had some really nice features in it. It turns out we took a $170 million write-down on it, so it clearly was not a commercial success. And yet we learned a lot from that, and some of our new devices incorporate some of the features that were in that phone, and our customers like our new devices. That's a happy ending. But the reason why that failure was painful was not the $170 million. It was the fact that it got out to customers. You see, we want to fail. We want to fail in private. And it's not because we're embarrassed about it. I'm telling you about it. We fail all the time. Jeff personally takes credit for billions of dollars of failure. Well, that's undoubtedly true. But it's not the failure itself that was painful about the Amazon phone. It was the fact that it got out to customers. And so we try to prevent that from happening. And hopefully we won't expose our customers to any more failures like that, but we will continue to fail. We will continue to make big bets and fail. Now, when it comes right down to the decision about whether to pursue a product or service often relies on a very fundamental binary decision. And I think anybody who is part of a large enterprise here is going to be familiar with what I'm going to tell you. Half of decisions, or let's put it this way, one category of decision making, we refer to as one-way doors. I'm an electrical engineer, so I think of them as diodes, but the whole point is that once you make the decision, it's very hard to unmake it. Maybe it's even impossible to unmake it. So if you face that sort of a decision where if you do the thing that you're thinking about, it's going to be really hard to stop doing it if it fails, or maybe it's even impossible to really undo, then you want to spend a lot of time thinking about that decision. Get all the data you can, really think it through, analyze it, assess it, beat it up, try to make it fail, all those things. But in any large enterprise like Amazon, the vast majority of decisions aren't like that. They're two-way doors. They're wires. You can go in either direction, meaning that you can try something, and if it fails, just stop doing it. The mistake that a lot of large enterprises of any sort, they can be educational, commercial, government, whatever, is that they spend all their time on every kind of decision assessing it as if it were a one-way door. They overdo it. They spend too much time thinking about it and not just doing it. So if you have a decision that you can clearly stop or reverse, if you need to, if it fails, then make it quickly. The speed is much more important than getting it right. So that kind of a two-way door decision-making process is got to be fast. And so the very first thing you've got to ask yourself when you're faced with a decision in your enterprise, whatever sort it is this something that I could just try out, and if it doesn't work, it fails? Or is it really, truly that kind of thing that you can't reverse if you do it? That's a big decision to make. So being right a lot is an important thing at Amazon, as is this willingness to fail. Now, the last of the leadership principles that I think is particularly important for innovation is called deliver results. And this sounds a bit prosaic. I mean, obviously you want to deliver results, but all the obsessing over customers, all the inventing and simplifying, all the being right a lot, it doesn't matter at all to customers if you don't actually deliver results. You actually have to do something for them. You have to be able to send out that press release. You've actually accomplished what you set out to do. So delivering results is super, super important. But if you think about it, I've talked to you about failure, about the times that Amazon has failed and the fact that we will continue to fail. How does that work? How is that sustainable for a quarter of a century? 25 years of failure, how do we get away with it? Well, the reason is because we always try. So if you're continually making a big bet, and another big bet, and another big bet, and another big bet, it works. And the reason it works is because business is not like sport. In sport, no matter how dominant your team is playing another team, if you win a match, you get one win. So the final score in a soccer match or football match could be 10-0. It could be 70-0. And what do you get out of it? One win. That's not true in business. In business, if you win, you can get one win. You can get 10 wins. You can get 10,000 wins. There's no upper cap to success, which means that as you go through the business and you're constantly taking big bets, if you have a big win and another big bet, another big bet, another big win, that will pay for a whole lot of losses and failures along the way. The mistake that big enterprises, again, of every stripe, including public sector and educational enterprise, but especially businesses make, is that they'll be doing something successful for a long time. Maybe it's years, maybe it's decades. They're doing the same thing and doing it really well. Their customers love it. Maybe it's a service. They provide a great service. They've been doing it for decades. And then some other technology comes along, or the external conditions change, and suddenly the company is looking at, wow, this service that we've been providing all these decades is no longer relevant. What are we going to do? Quick, invent. Well, that might work. You might actually be able to invent something quickly that will replace the product or service that you've been relying on for decades, but that's pretty unlikely. The more likely outcome is that you need to bet the company. So Amazon will continue to make big bets. We'll never bet the company. And so some of those big bets have been ones that were kind of into the unknown. One of those was something called Amazon Prime. You may have heard of this, but basically it's a subscription service that allows customers a lot of free stuff. So if they subscribe annually, they get a lot of free stuff. Initially, it was free shipping within 2 days on millions of different products. It's expanded to a lot of other things now. But we really didn't know if it was going to be sustainable. We knew that customers would like free shipping, and more importantly, they would like it in the context of an e-commerce reality, which was if you went to purchase something online, you would see the price of the object, or the product, and then you would have to go and enter your shipping address, and then your credit card information, and all the other information about you to get ready to go check out, and only then you would see the shipping cost added to the price. Well, that's a really inconvenient, not great customer experience, because you had in mind that this was the price, and if the shipping cost is significant, then all of a sudden that much bigger price, it doesn't make this price look so good anymore. We knew that was a bad customer experience, so what we wanted to do is we just wanted to remove that shipping price add-on, that extra, just remove it entirely so customers didn't have to think about it. So we thought this subscription service called Amazon Prime would be well liked by customers. What we didn't know is that kind of providing them free shipping was going to be sustainable for a long period of time. And you need to only look at our financial reports in so the mid-2000s, the late 2000s, you'll see that there were some pretty significant payments being made out of the company, going to third parties, going to DHL or FedEx or whomever. And we didn't know if that was a sustainable thing. It turned out it was, but that was the kind of experiment that we had to perform externally. And so that, in some senses, this was kind of a risky thing to offer to our customers, in part because no one was really asking for it. We were anticipating a need. Another example of this anticipation is Amazon Web Services. Now, Amazon Web Services has a big presence here in Israel. If you've not heard about it, it's our version of cloud computing. And we essentially invented cloud computing. This goes back now 12, 13 years ago. We had an internal problem at Amazon. We were working on different products and services all throughout the company, all these different things. Then we would have experts on a new line of business. Maybe it's, I don't know, sports equipment, and that expert is working on it, and they have relationships with buyers, and they know how to market sports equipment. But every one of these teams all throughout Amazon had its own set of software engineers, developers, people designing things like databases and storage and computation. And we said, well, this is kind of crazy. We're repeating that service all throughout the company. Why not harmonize it and bring it together into a sort of a central service? We also were recognizing that a lot of other enterprises were facing the same kind of a challenge. And so we developed this whole cloud computing notion in order to provide our customers externally, as well as the company internally, this kind of software as a service, these kinds of products that are available to now our customers, that they don't need to go off and buy computer hardware, they don't need to go off and lease computer software. They can just use the service however much they need or however little they need. They can scale up, scale down, all those things. But this was born of a need internally. Nobody was coming to Amazon saying, please, Amazon, invent cloud computing. It wasn't the case. And so this is an important point. Don't feel like you have to respond to customers when they ask for something, not because you don't want to be responsive, but because they won't ask most of the time. They don't know what to ask for. No one was coming to Amazon saying, please invent cloud computing services. That wasn't the case. We anticipated that they would have some of the same problems that we were facing internally and that they might like this. And it turns out it's true that they do like this. And so here in Israel, we have Amazon Web Services is present here. It's helping startups reach around the world. A very small enterprise here in Israel, a startup, can immediately reach the rest of the world using Amazon Web Services based here in Tel Aviv. It's the kind of thing that we invented anticipating what our customers would want. And again, it was one of those working backwards processes where we would write a press release anticipating that we had to figure out how to do this thing that no one had ever done before and invent our way back to the present. So delivering results is core. I'll leave you with this. I've suggested some big things that are hard to do. Customer obsession is hard to do, being willing to fail because of all the stigma that attaches to failure, requiring everyone to invent, actually delivering results. These are 4 very hard things. I get it. I get it, they're tough. Doesn't mean you can't work towards them. But I've also suggested some easy things. That press release, that narrative, the narrative that you would require people in your organization or require yourself to write out is a great exercise. A company of the written word as we are, it's worked, and that's something that is easily tried. And if it doesn't work for you or your enterprise, that's okay, but at least you can give that one a try, and it doesn't cost any money, really. You just spend the weekend writing a narrative instead of making PowerPoint slides. The other one that you might want to try is really thinking about decision making, saying, is this a reversible or an irreversible decision? And that will guide whether you need a super amount of information or whether you should make it quickly. If it's irreversible, get all the information you have. If it's reversible, make the decision fast because you can try something and stop trying it if it doesn't work out. The whole notion of the press release, I really think that everybody in the room can have one in their work life, in their personal life, their school life. However, there's no reason why you couldn't use this as a goal mechanism for your own self, as well as for your enterprises. But with that, I'll leave you. And again, I really appreciate the honor of being able to speak here at the IDC on its 25th anniversary, as well as on Amazon's. Thank you very much.